Hello, Merry Christmas. Now, if you're anything like me and part of what you enjoy about gift giving is making something, if you're even just a little bit artistic, you have piles of art and craft supplies laying around just because you like that sort of thing. As somebody who's a little bit creative, it's like, why would I buy something that I can make myself? And something really fun that I like to do whenever I have time is make cards for people whenever there's an occasion to give somebody a card, and that puts a little bit more sentimental value into the gift itself. Most Christmases, I like to bake a bunch of cookies to give out to my friends and family, and this Christmas, I'm also going to do that, but I thought it would be fun to make Christmas cards to go in them. So I needed something that was pretty Christmassy and fun, but something that didn't take too much time and too much effort to put into, because I needed to make a pretty good amount of cards, so I couldn't be spending all day for one card. So I'm going to show you 4 Christmas card ideas that were relatively quick, don't take a lot of artistic skill, and were fun and easy to make. If you have old art supplies lying around, so if you're like me and you have old art supplies laying around, this is a great way to use them. All I use in this video is some watercolors. You can use any watercolors. I just used a really old palette that I had from years ago. And then, of course, I would recommend watercolor paper. But if you're anything like me and just enjoy art supplies and craft things, and have been into art for years, it's likely that you already have those things lying around. I have a big pad of watercolor paper. You can make the cards any size you want. I just folded my paper in half and then folded each half in half and then folded it lengthwise. I hope that makes sense. That way I could get multiple cards out of one sheet. And that's just the watercolor paper I had. That's the size I had. If I had a different size, I would have cut it accordingly. So watercolors, watercolor paper, and a pen, basically, and maybe a pencil if you want to do some light sketching. I honestly didn't really do too much sketching, so a pencil's not even really necessary. And down below, I'll make sure to link all of my reference images so you can check those out if you do want to recreate them. The first card I did was my Snowman card. Basically, this one's really simple. You just rough hand a large circle. You could use a compass if you wanted to make sure they were perfectly round, but the point of these cards is to be quick and easy and minimal supplies. And when you think about it, snowmen most likely aren't perfectly round anyway. So just rough hand a large circle as best you can, and then a littler circle. I did mine a little bit off center, but you can put it wherever you want, really. And then you draw the little bucket on his head and where his face is going to be to point the direction that your snowman's going to be facing. And then all you have to do is mix a bluish gray watercolor, and then just sort of, not a stiff hand, dab it around the circumferences of your circles. And I would start light and then dab some darker blues and grays into certain areas to give it more depth, and do that around both of your circles, and then painting in the bucket. And then once the blue has dried, then you can go in with the brown to make the branches, and with orange for the carrot nose. And then I would just wait to do the eyeballs with pen afterwards. The next card idea is just very simple trees. This is an extremely beautiful design, but it's very easy. No painting skills required. Basically, all I did was mix up a really light translucent green with a little bit of blue and drew my lines where I wanted the tree. These are going to be the trees in the distance. You're going to draw 2 lines where you want your trees. And then I took like a flat square brush and I just dabbed it really randomly down into gradually getting a little bit larger as I go down. And you just do that for both of your trees, and then you're going to want to let those completely dry, and then you can go ahead and darken the green that you've already made with a little bit more green and draw 2 more lines in front of those trees and do the same exact thing. You're going to probably want the heights to be different just to give it a little bit more interest, and then just do this exact same thing, just dab outwards and kind of down to create tree branches. And it's one of those kind of trust the process things. You might be thinking, this doesn't look like a tree, this looks horrendous, but just dab it out. Just trust the process. And then what I did was I let that dry, and then I went back in onto my foreground trees with an even more pigmented and darker green, and just lightly dabbed on some of the branches just to add a little bit more depth. And then the next design that I decided to do was a holly bush design, which I just started by mixing a brown and drawing out where I wanted my branches to be, and then just mixing up a green. and adding in leaves. And this is, again, pretty easy. You can sketch it out if you would be more comfortable sketching it out, but honestly, you know, it's a tree branch. You just put leaves on it, and once your branches and leaves have dried, I went back in with another darker green just to add a little bit more depth, just like I did with the trees. And then you mix up a red and just add a couple polyberries. And for this card, I did use a gold uniball pen. Obviously, you could use paint. You could use any pen that you have. I could use whatever supplies you have. And I just drew an outline around the card to sort of give it a frame. And that's that card. And then the final card that I created is a more wintry scene. For this card, I started out by drawing 6 lines down my card just to mark out where the birch trees were going to be. And then I mixed up a light blue, and that's when I painted the sky in the background. I just did a wash of a light blue, and then by the time you get the wash over all of the sky, the paint has dried slightly enough where you can go in with a darker blue to add a little bit more depth and just dab in some darker blues here and there to give it more depth. And then I would let the sky completely dry before you started on the trees, just so you don't have any blue bleeding into your birch trees. So once your sky is dry enough, I mixed up a very light, very watered down gray just to add some shading and like the lines on the birch tree with a very light gray. I wouldn't let the light gray dry all the way. I would just let it dry a little bit. So once you get done with doing your light gray on all your trees, it's probably not completely dry yet. And then I went in with a little bit more of a pigmented darker gray just to add a little bit more depth. And then once your sky and all your trees are dry, all I did was take my ballpoint pen and added some little branches sticking out the trees. Then once that's all done, I just took some acrylic paint. You could also use a white pen or marker if you had one that was opaque enough, but I just used some cheap acrylic paint that I have and used a toothpick just to dot little snowflakes everywhere. This can be time consuming, and you can make it as snowy as you want. You can make it as a light slurry, or you can make a lot more snow. I had a lot of fun adding a bunch of little white dots, so some of mine are pretty snowy, but obviously you could make it just a little dusting if you would prefer. So that is all the cards that I made. It really did not take me too long. I did all 4 easily in one afternoon. I ended up doing about 4 of each design, and for my birch trees, I just like put down 3 cards and painted 3 of them all at once. I did like all the sky and then all the tree, like all in one go, so kind of like an assembly line. So I whip out 3 Christmas cards in an hour. It does not have to take too long, but they come out beautifully and are amazing little gifts to give to people during the holidays. I also wrote Merry Christmas on them because these are supposed to be Christmas cards. I just took my pen that I have and did faux calligraphy. So I just wrote it out as best as I can. I don't have a steady hand. I don't have the greatest penmanship, but I just took my time and wrote it out nice in cursive, and then went back and sort of thickened the downstrokes, you know, and made it look like it was calligraphy. But that is all the card ideas I have, and that's what I will be giving out to my friends and family this Christmas. It's really last minute, but these are really pretty, really simple designs that most people could do with minimal artistic experience, and they come out great, and people are going to love them. I bet you people won't even know that you made them. People will think you bought them. That's how good they are. But that's all I wanted to share, just 4 quick and easy Christmas card designs that you can do pretty last minute, and I'm sure people will love. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.